My family sang happy birthday over a cake with my brother's name on it. Dad said, "It's just a cake, don't be dramatic." Mom took a photo and posted it. Everyone kept eating. I finished my slice in silence and never went back. 2 months later, they asked me to plan his surprise party. My name's Michael, I'm 32, and I want to tell you about the moment I realized I was basically a background extra in my own family. Not like a cool background extra either. Not the guy in the bar scene who gets a knowing nod from the lead actor. More like the blurry shape walking past a window that nobody notices unless they freeze-frame the DVD. And even then they'd probably say, "Is that a person or a coat rack?" That's me. Family coat rack. Except coat racks at least get used. Let me back up. I grew up in a suburb outside of Richmond, Virginia. Nice enough area, the kind of neighborhood where people wave at each other from their driveways but don't actually know each other's last names. My parents, Gloria and Don, had 2 kids. Me, the oldest by 3 years, and my younger brother Sutton. And before you ask, yes, Sutton. My mom picked it out of a baby name book and said it sounded distinguished. Meanwhile, I got Michael, which is fine. It's a perfectly good name. But nobody's ever called Michael distinguished. Michael is the name of the guy who fixes your dishwasher and charges you a fair price. Sutton is the name of the guy on the brochure for a yacht club. That pretty much sums up how things went in our house growing up. Sutton was the golden child. And I don't mean that in the casual way people throw that term around. I mean it in the very specific, very documented, very photographed way. Now look, I know every family has dynamics. I'm not here to act like I had some tragic Dickensian childhood. We had food, we had a roof, I played baseball, and nobody hit me. But there's a specific kind of loneliness that comes from being in a family that loves you but doesn't really see you. They remember to pick me up from practice. They just wouldn't ask how the game went. My dad, Don, he's the type of man who expresses affection through selective attention. When Sutton started playing guitar in high school, Dad bought him a Martin acoustic and sat in the living room listening to him practice every night. When I joined the debate team and made it to regionals, Dad said, "That's great, bud," without looking up from his phone. Sutton was prime time. I was the infomercial at 3 in the morning trying to sell you a mop. By the time I hit my mid-20s, I'd mostly made peace with it. Or at least I thought I had. I'd moved about 90 minutes away to Charlottesville, got a decent job in logistics management for a distribution company, had a small apartment with a cat named Rooney, and I was doing fine. Not thriving, not drowning. Just floating in that middle space where you tell yourself you're content, because the alternative is admitting you're kind of sad. I still went home for holidays and birthdays. That was the deal. Mom was big on birthdays, especially. She'd do the whole thing. Homemade cake, decorations, a big family dinner. It was her love language, or at least I thought it was everybody's love language. Turns out it was specifically Sutton's love language. But I'll get to that. So let me set the scene for the day that changed everything. It was a Saturday in October, and it was my 32nd birthday. I'd driven the 90 minutes to my parents' house because Mom had texted me earlier that week saying she was planning a special dinner. Her exact words were, "We're doing something really nice for your birthday, Michael. Don't be late." And I wasn't late. I showed up at 5:30 on the dot, even brought a bottle of wine because I'm a grown man who brings wine to things now. The house looked nice. There were a few balloons tied to the mailbox, which I thought was a sweet touch. Inside, the dining room table was set with the good plates, the ones Mom only brought out for holidays and when she was trying to impress someone. My Aunt Jolene was there with her husband Clyde, my cousin Waverly and her boyfriend, and obviously Sutton was there with his girlfriend Sloan. Everyone said hi, gave me hugs, the usual. It felt warm. It felt like maybe I'd been too hard on them, like maybe this was the year they'd finally make me feel like I mattered. Then the cake came out. Mom carried it in from the kitchen on this big white serving platter, and everyone started singing happy birthday. I'm standing there like an idiot with this big, goofy smile on my face, genuinely touched, genuinely feeling like a person who belongs in this room. And then I looked down at the cake. It said, "Happy Birthday, Sutton," in blue frosting. I blinked, looked again, still said Sutton, in cursive, with a little frosting guitar next to it because Sutton still plays guitar and Mom thinks that's his entire personality. Nobody stopped singing. Not one person. They sang the whole song, and when they got to the name part, half the room sang Michael, and the other half sang Sutton, and it turned into this weird, overlapping mumble like a church congregation that doesn't know the hymn. When they finished, Mom set the cake down in front of me and said, Make a wish, sweetie. I looked at her. I looked at the cake. I looked at my dad. And I said, Mom, that says Sutton. She looked down at it and her face did this thing where it went through about 4 emotions in 2 seconds. Confusion, recognition, embarrassment, and then, this is the part that got me, dismissal. She waved her hand and said, Oh, you know what? I ordered 2 cakes last week because Sutton's birthday is coming up next month and the bakery must have mixed up the names. It's the same cake though. Same flavor. It's fine. I stood there for a second, processing that. My mother had looked at a cake with the wrong name on it, her other son's name on it, on my birthday, and decided that it was fine. That the inside mattered more than what it said. That I should eat a slice of someone else's birthday cake and be grateful. Sutton, to his credit, looked a little uncomfortable. He kind of half laughed and said, That's kind of funny actually, which was not helpful. Sloan nudged him and he shut up. I turned to my dad, because I don't know, maybe I thought he'd be the voice of reason. I said, Dad, come on. This is my birthday. That's literally not my name on the cake. And my father, Don, a man who has been alive for 59 years and has allegedly loved me for 32 of them, looked me dead in the eyes and said, It's just a cake, Michael. Don't be dramatic. Don't be dramatic. That's what he said. On my birthday, while I was standing in front of a cake with my brother's name on it. While everyone in the room looked at me like I was the one making it weird. I opened my mouth to say something else, but before I could, Mom pulled out her phone and said, Okay, everyone squeeze in for a photo. And they did. They all squeezed in around me and the cake that said Happy Birthday Sutton, and Mom snapped the picture and immediately started tapping her screen. I knew what she was doing. She was posting it to Facebook. The photo of me standing behind my brother's birthday cake on my own birthday. And she didn't even think twice about it. Aunt Jolene cut the first slice and handed it to me. Waverly was already scrolling her phone. Clyde was talking to my dad about a truck he was thinking about buying. Sutton and Sloan were whispering to each other. Nobody was looking at me. Nobody was asking if I was okay. So I sat down. I took the plate, and I ate my slice of Sutton's birthday cake in complete silence. I chewed every bite, and I didn't say a single word. When I was done, I wiped my mouth with a napkin, stood up, said, Thanks for dinner, walked out the front door, got in my car, and drove 90 minutes home. I didn't cry on the drive. I didn't scream. I just drove in silence with the radio off and thought about every single time I'd told myself it wasn't that bad. Every time I'd made excuses for them. Every time I'd said, They love me, they're just not great at showing it. And somewhere around mile 60, I realized something that should have been obvious years ago. They weren't bad at showing it. They just didn't have that much of it to show. When I got home that night, I sat on my couch with Rooney purring on my lap, and I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I scrolled through my mom's Facebook, and there it was. The photo. Me, standing behind the cake, surrounded by my family, and you could clearly read Happy Birthday Sutton on the frosting. The caption said, Celebrating our Michael's birthday with the whole family. So blessed, with about 4 heart emojis and a cake emoji. 23 likes. 7 comments. Aunt Jolene commented, What a beautiful evening. My mom's friend Deborah said, Your boys are so handsome. Not one person mentioned the cake. Not one person said, Hey Gloria, why does that cake say Sutton? Either nobody noticed, nobody cared, or everybody had just accepted that this was how things worked in our family. Michael gets the wrong cake. Michael deals with it. Michael doesn't make a fuss. I put my phone down and stared at the ceiling for a long time. For the next few days, I didn't call anyone. That wasn't unusual because I was typically the one who initiated contact. If I didn't call Mom, Mom didn't call me. If I didn't text Sutton, Sutton didn't text me. It was like I had this invisible maintenance contract with my family where I was responsible for all the upkeep, and they just showed up when the lights were on. For days passed before I got a text from my mom. It said, You left without saying goodbye Saturday. That was rude. Aunt Jolene noticed. Not, Are you okay? Not, I'm sorry about the cake. Just that I was rude for leaving my own birthday dinner where they served me a cake with someone else's name on it. I stared at that message for a good 10 minutes. Then I typed back, Sorry, I had a long drive, and put my phone in a drawer. That was the last time I went home. Now, I should tell you about the weeks that followed, because this is where things got interesting in a way I didn't expect. I pulled back, quietly, completely, and without announcement. I stopped calling. I stopped texting. I stopped sending the random check-in messages I'd been sending my whole adult life. I didn't make a declaration. I didn't post anything online. I didn't send a letter explaining my feelings. I just stopped. And here's the thing about being the person who always reaches out. When you stop, the silence is deafening, but only for you. For them, it's Tuesday. 2 weeks went by. Nothing. 3 weeks. Nothing. A full month passed before I got a text from Sutton that said, "Hey man, you good? Haven't heard from you." I said, "Yeah, just busy with work." He said, "Cool." And that was it. That was the extent of my family's concern after a month of radio silence from me. Meanwhile, I was going through something I didn't fully understand at the time. I've since learned it's called disenfranchised grief, which is when you're mourning a loss that other people don't recognize as a loss. I wasn't mourning a death. I was mourning the family I thought I had. The family I'd been pretending I had for 32 years. And the weird thing about that kind of grief is that it doesn't come in waves. It comes in these small, sharp moments throughout the day. You're pouring coffee, and suddenly you remember the time your dad drove 3 hours to watch Sutton's college concert, but couldn't make it 20 minutes across town for your promotion dinner. You're in a meeting at work, and you flash back to the Christmas where your mom wrapped 16 presents for Sutton and 9 for you, and said, "Sutton just has more interests." I started noticing patterns I'd spent my whole life ignoring. I went back through old photos and counted. In the family photo albums, Sutton appeared in roughly 4 times as many pictures as I did. At Christmas, Sutton's stocking was always hung first, in the center of the mantle. Mine was on the end, sometimes partially hidden by a garland. I know how this sounds. I know some of you are thinking, "Michael, you're 32, get over it." And you know what? Fair. I hear you. But here's the thing. It's not about the cake. The cake was just the last drop in a bucket that had been filling up for 3 decades. The cake was the moment I finally looked down and realized I was standing in a flood. About 6 weeks after my birthday, something happened that made the whole situation worse. Sutton got engaged to Sloan, and the way I found out was through my mom's Facebook post. Not a phone call, not a text. A Facebook post with a photo of Sutton down on one knee at some winery, and mom's caption said, "My baby boy is getting married." The proudest moment of my life. The proudest moment of her life. Not one of the. I didn't call to congratulate. I know that makes me look bad, and I'm willing to accept that. But I just couldn't bring myself to pick up the phone and celebrate another milestone for the person my family had spent 30 years centering while I stood in the margins. Sutton texted me about it 2 days later. His message said, "Guess you saw the news. We're thinking next fall. You'll be there, right?" Not, "Will you be my best man?" Not, "I'd love for you to be part of this." Just, "You'll be there, right?" Like my attendance was a given. Like showing up was all I'd ever been expected to do. I didn't respond for 3 days. When I finally did, I just said, "Congrats, man. Happy for you both." Short, polite, distant. The kind of message you send to a coworker, not a brother. Then came Thanksgiving. Mom texted me the week before. "Dinner's at 2. Bring that wine you brought last time. Sutton and Sloan are announcing their wedding plans. No, we'd love to see you. No, we miss you." Just a set of instructions and a reminder that even a holiday dinner was going to be about Sutton. I didn't go. I told Mom I had to work, which was a lie. I spent Thanksgiving in my apartment eating a rotisserie chicken from the grocery store and watching football with Rooney. And honestly, it was the most peaceful Thanksgiving I'd had in years. No sitting at the end of the table while everyone orbited around Sutton. No pretending to laugh at Dad's jokes that were never directed at me. No watching Mom light up when Sutton walked into the room in a way she never lit up for me. My phone blew up that evening. Mom called twice. I let it ring. She left a voicemail that said, "Michael, your absence was noticed. Aunt Jolene asked about you." It was embarrassing. There it was again. Not concern for me. Concern for how my absence looked. I was a prop. I was a set piece. When the set piece goes missing, the stage looks wrong, and that's the problem. Not that the set piece might be hurting. Just that the stage looks wrong. Dad didn't call. He never called. In my entire adult life, I can count on one hand the number of times my father called me without Mom making him. 2 were to ask me to help move furniture. 1 was to tell me my grandmother died. And 1 was a pocket dial. Christmas came. I didn't go home for that either. I told Mom I was spending it with friends, which was half true. My buddy Emmett from work had invited me to his family's Christmas dinner, and I went, and it was the strangest experience. His mom, Loretta, asked me 3 times if I wanted more mashed potatoes. His dad, Big Hank, asked me about my job and actually listened to the answer. His sister Cordelia made me a plate to take home. These people had known me for about 4 hours and treated me better than my own family had in 32 years. I sat in Emmett's childhood bedroom afterward, waiting for the pie to come out, and I almost lost it. Not because I was sad, because I was angry. Angry that this is what it was supposed to feel like. On the drive home from Emmett's, I made a decision. I was done going back. Not with anger, not with a dramatic declaration, just done. Quietly, permanently done. I was going to build a life that didn't include waiting by the door for people who couldn't even get my name on a cake. Whatever came next, it was going to be mine, and it was going to be on my terms. I didn't know then that my family would come knocking sooner than I expected, and I definitely didn't know what they'd have the nerve to ask me. The first 2 months after I stopped going home were rough in ways I didn't anticipate. Not because I missed the dysfunction. I missed the idea of what it should have been. There's a difference. I didn't miss sitting at that table feeling invisible. I missed the version of that table that existed in my head, the one where somebody actually asked how I was doing and meant it. I threw myself into work, not in a sad, unhealthy way, but in the way you do when you suddenly have a lot of emotional energy with nowhere to put it. I'd been coasting at my logistics job for years, doing competent work but never pushing for more, because somewhere in the back of my mind I'd always believed the story my family told about me, that I was the reliable one, the steady one, the one who didn't need much. Reliable is just a polite way of saying forgettable. Steady is just a nice word for ignored. My boss, a woman named Harlan. Yes, Harlan. Her parents were creative, had been telling me for 2 years that I was underperforming relative to my ability. I'd always kind of shrugged it off. But in January, she pulled me into her office and said, "Michael, I'm putting you on the Tidewater account. It's the biggest distribution contract we've bid on in 3 years. If you land this, you're looking at a senior operations manager title and a salary bump that'll make your eyes water." I don't know what came over me. Old Michael would have said, "Are you sure? Maybe Garrison should handle it." New Michael said, "When do I start?" The Tidewater account was a beast. It was a regional grocery chain expanding into 4 new states, and they needed a logistics partner who could handle cold chain distribution across a network of 240 stores. The bid process took 8 weeks of analysis, site visits, proposal writing, and more spreadsheets than I'd ever seen in my life. I worked late. I worked weekends. I worked through a head cold that tried to kill me in February. And for the first time in a very long time, I was good at something and people were noticing. Emmett was a huge help. He was in the sales division and had connections with the Tidewater procurement team. He'd feed me intel on what they were prioritizing, what the competing bids looked like, and who the key decision makers were. We became a 2-man operation, and somewhere in those late nights reviewing spreadsheets and eating bad takeout, Emmett became the closest thing to a brother I'd ever had. He was blunt, loud, told terrible jokes, and never once made me feel like I was in the way. One night in February, while we were working late, Emmett looked at me and said, "You know what your problem is, Michael?" I said, "I've got a list, but go ahead." He said, "You don't know you're the smartest guy in the room. You walk in apologizing for taking up space. Stop that." Nobody had ever said that to me before. Nobody in my family had ever looked at me and said, "You're smart. You're capable. Stop shrinking." It hit me harder than I expected. I played it cool, said something like, "That's the nicest thing a man who eats gas station burritos for breakfast has ever told me." But I thought about it for days. We landed the Tidewater account in early March. It was the largest contract in the company's history. Harlan took the whole team out for dinner, and during the toast, she specifically said, "This doesn't happen without Michael. He's the one who made this work." People clapped. Emmett whistled. I stood there feeling something I hadn't felt in years, proud of myself, and surrounded by people who were proud of me too. The promotion came through 2 weeks later. Senior Operations Manager. The raise was significant, enough that I started looking at houses instead of apartments. Enough that I could stop living like someone who was waiting for the next bad thing to happen and start living like someone who deserved good things. I found a place in April. A 3-bedroom house on a quiet street in Crozet, about 20 minutes outside of Charlottesville. It had a big backyard with an oak tree that had to be 100 years old, a front porch with a swing, and a kitchen with actual counter space. which felt like a luxury after years of apartments where you couldn't open the oven and the fridge at the same time. Rooney loved it. He spent the first week just walking from room to room like he was inspecting the premises. I told him he was the man of the house now, and he looked at me like he'd been waiting for me to acknowledge that. Around the same time, I started seeing someone. Her name was Tessa. She was a veterinarian who worked at the animal hospital where I took Rooney for his annual checkup. She had this way about her, calm and warm and observant, the kind of person who asks you a question and then actually listens to the answer. We started talking in the waiting room, and I asked her to coffee, which is the most boring origin story in the world, but not every love story has to start with a car chase. Tessa was good for me in ways I'm still discovering. She didn't pity me when I told her about my family. She didn't rush to say, "Oh, I'm sure they love you in their own way," which is what most people say, and which is the emotional equivalent of putting a Band-Aid on a broken femur. Instead, she just looked at me and said, "That's not okay. You deserved better than that." Simple, direct, true. With Tessa, I started to understand what it felt like to be someone's priority. She remembered things I said. She noticed when I was quiet. She showed up, not in big, dramatic ways, just in the small, daily ways that actually matter. She'd text me to ask how a meeting went. She'd bring me coffee on Saturday mornings without being asked. She'd listen to me talk about the Tidewater account like it was the most interesting thing in the world, even though she had zero interest in supply chain logistics. By late spring, my life looked completely different than it had 6 months earlier. New job title, new house, new relationship, new friendships. I was sleeping better, eating better, laughing more. I'd started playing basketball on Wednesday nights with Emmett and a group of guys from work. I was reading again, cooking real meals, taking Rooney on long walks through the neighborhood. I was becoming a version of myself that I actually liked. And through all of it, my family's silence was constant. In 5 months, I'd received a total of 4 texts from my mom, all of which were about logistical things. Did I have Aunt Jolene's new address? Did I know what size shirt Dad wore? Was I coming to Sutton's engagement party? No, how are you? No, we miss you. No, I've been thinking about what happened at your birthday. Just maintenance requests from people who only noticed the coat rack when they needed to hang something up. I didn't go to Sutton's engagement party. Mom's reaction was a single text. Your absence was hurtful to your brother. I almost laughed. My absence was hurtful. Not the 32 years of being secondary. Not the birthday cake. Not the Facebook post. My absence. Because that's the only thing that affected them. I didn't respond to that text. I put my phone away, went out to my front porch, sat on the swing with Rooney, and watched the fireflies come out over the backyard. The oak tree was full and green. The evening air smelled like cut grass, and somewhere down the street someone was grilling burgers. For the first time in my life, I was exactly where I was supposed to be, and I wasn't waiting for anyone's permission to feel that way. What I didn't know was that my mom was about to text me again, and what she was going to ask me was going to be so absurd, so completely tone deaf, that even now, telling you about it, I still can't believe it actually happened. It was a Tuesday evening in early June when the text came through. I was sitting on my porch with Tessa, Rooney was asleep between us, and we were talking about possibly taking a weekend trip to the Blue Ridge. My phone buzzed and I glanced down. It was Mom. "Michael, I need your help with something important. Sutton's birthday is coming up in 3 weeks, and I want to throw him a surprise party. A big one. Can you handle the planning? You're so good at organizing things. Call me when you get this." I read it twice. Then I read it a third time just to make sure I wasn't having a stroke. My mother, the woman who served me a birthday cake with my brother's name on it, who posted the photo to Facebook without a second thought, who told me my absence was embarrassing rather than asking why I left, was now asking me to plan a surprise birthday party for the brother whose name was on my cake. Tessa saw my face and said, "What happened?" I handed her the phone. She read it, then looked at me with this expression that was half disbelief and half the face you make when you watch someone walk into a glass door. "She's not serious," Tessa said. "She's absolutely serious," I said. "This is completely on brand." I didn't respond that night. I needed to think, not about whether to do it, because the answer was obviously no, but about what this moment actually meant. My mom wasn't being malicious. That's the thing people don't understand about families like mine. She wasn't sitting in her kitchen twirling a villain mustache, thinking up ways to hurt me. She genuinely did not see the problem. In her mind, I was the organized one, the capable one, the one who handles things. Asking me to plan Sutton's party wasn't an insult. It was a compliment. The fact that it was deeply, profoundly tone-deaf given everything that had happened didn't register for her because, in her version of reality, nothing had happened. I left my birthday dinner early. That was rude. End of story. The next morning, Mom called. I let it go to voicemail. She called again at lunch. Voicemail. That evening, she texted, "Michael, I know you're busy, but this is time sensitive. Sutton deserves something really special this year. He's had a big year with the engagement and everything. Please call me. Sutton deserves something really special this year." I sat with that sentence for a while. Every year was Sutton's year. Every dinner was Sutton's dinner. Every cake was Sutton's cake, apparently even mine. I called Emmett, not because I needed advice, but because I needed to say it out loud to someone who would react the way a normal human being would react. Emmett did not disappoint. There was a solid 4-second pause after I told him, followed by, "Brother, I'm going to need you to repeat that because I think my brain just rejected it." I repeated it. He laughed. Not a polite chuckle, but a full, wheezing, had to put the phone down laugh. When he recovered, he said, "Michael, your family is unbelievable. This is like asking the guy you rear-ended to buff out the dent. What are you going to do?" "I have no idea," I said. But that wasn't entirely true. Something was forming in the back of my mind. Not revenge exactly. More like clarity. If my mom wanted me to plan a party, maybe I should plan a party. Just not the kind she was expecting. I called her back the next day. I kept it short and calm. "I got your messages, Mom. I'll help with Sutton's party." She was thrilled. Absolutely over the moon. "Oh, Michael, that's wonderful. I knew I could count on you. You've always been so dependable." Dependable. There's that word again. The polite cousin of forgettable. Over the next week, Mom fed me the details. She wanted it at her house, catered, about 40 people, the whole extended family plus Sutton's friends. She wanted a band, or at least a good speaker system for a playlist. She wanted decorations in navy and gold because those were Sutton's colors. She wanted a photo display of Sutton's life achievements, from childhood to the engagement. She wanted a cake from the same bakery. She specifically said, "Make sure the cake says Sutton this time." And I swear she said it without a trace of irony. I almost asked her what name she thought they'd accidentally put on it, but I held my tongue. I told her I'd handle everything. And I did. I started planning. But I also started doing something else. I began putting together a different kind of presentation. Not a photo display of Sutton's greatest hits, but a compilation of my own. Every family photo where I was cropped out or shoved to the edge. The screenshot of Mom's Facebook post with my birthday cake that said Sutton's name. Text messages from my mom where the only time she reached out was to ask for something. A side-by-side of the scrapbooks, Sutton's 3 volumes versus my incomplete one. The Christmas gift tally from the year I counted. The list of school events my parents attended for Sutton versus the ones they attended for me. The birthday cake photo with the caption, "I wasn't doing this to humiliate anyone." I want to be clear about that. I was doing it because my family had spent 32 years telling a story about who I was and who Sutton was, and none of them had ever seen the evidence laid out plainly. They'd never had to look at it all at once. They'd never had to sit in the same room and confront the pattern. Tessa helped me put it together. She was the one who suggested framing it not as an attack, but as a goodbye. "If you go in swinging, they'll get defensive and nothing changes," she said. "But if you go in calm, with facts, and tell them what you've decided, they can't argue with it. They can only feel it." She was right. She's annoyingly right about most things, honestly. It's one of her best and most irritating qualities. Emmett helped too, in his way. He mostly sat on my couch eating chips and providing moral support, which consisted of saying things like, "This is going to be legendary, and can I be there when it happens?" I told him no, but that I'd give him a full debrief. I also did something practical. I called a family therapist named Dr. Leona Voss, who I'd started seeing in February. I told her what I was planning and asked if she thought it was a terrible idea. She said, "Michael, I think the terrible idea was spending 32 years pretending you were okay with how they treated you. This isn't about revenge. This is about the truth. And the truth doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be clear." So I planned both events simultaneously. The party my mom wanted. Catering, decorations, guest list, playlist, the whole production. And the moment I needed. A quiet, factual, undeniable presentation of everything I'd been carrying, delivered at the one time when the whole family would be in the same room. The party was set for the last Saturday in June. I coordinated with Aunt Jolene to handle the food. I rented chairs and tables. I arranged the decorations. I even got the cake, and yes, it said Happy Birthday Sutton on it, in blue frosting, just like mine did. I requested it specifically. Same bakery, same font, same little guitar. Mom was delighted with the progress. She kept texting me updates and praise, and honestly, it was the most attention she'd given me in years. "Michael, you're doing such a wonderful job. Sutton is going to love this." And every time she said that, I felt a little twinge of something. Not guilt exactly, more like sadness. Because she was right. I was doing a wonderful job. I always had. She just never noticed until it was for Sutton. The day before the party, I sat in my living room with Tessa and went over everything one more time. The presentation was on my laptop, clean and simple. Photos, screenshots, dates. No editorializing, no captions designed to wound. Just evidence. 32 years of evidence. Tessa squeezed my hand and said, "Are you sure about this?" I looked at her. I looked at Rooney, who was asleep on the rug. I looked around at this house I'd bought with my own money, in a life I'd built with my own hands, surrounded by people who actually cared about me. And I said, I've never been more sure of anything. Saturday morning, I loaded everything into my car and drove the 90 minutes to my parents' house for the last time. The party was beautiful. I'm not going to lie about that. The backyard was strung with lights. The tables were set with navy and gold linens. The caterer had laid out a spread that smelled incredible, and the cake sat in the center of the dessert table like a frosted monument to my brother's existence. 40-some people milled around the yard, drinks in hand, waiting for Sutton to arrive. Mom was buzzing from guest to guest telling everyone, "Michael planned the whole thing. Isn't it gorgeous?" "Yeah, Mom, it is." Sutton arrived at 4 on the dot. Sloan had driven him over under the pretense of picking something up from Mom's house, and when he walked through the back gate, everyone yelled surprise. He looked genuinely happy. He hugged Mom. He hugged Dad. He hugged Sloan. Then he saw me and walked over. "Michael, man, this is incredible. Mom told me you did all of this." I shook his hand and said, "Happy birthday, Sutton." He pulled me into a hug. It was the most contact we'd had in months. And I let him have that moment because what was coming next wasn't about punishing him. Sutton wasn't the villain of this story. He was the beneficiary of a system he didn't build. My problem was never with my brother. My problem was with the system and the 2 people who ran it. The party went on for about an hour. People ate, laughed, told stories about Sutton. Dad gave a toast that lasted 6 minutes, which was approximately 5 minutes and 55 seconds longer than any toast he'd ever given for me. Mom cried during the toast, naturally. Aunt Jolene took about 400 photos. It was a beautiful, warm, perfectly orchestrated celebration of the golden child. Then it was time for the cake. Mom carried it out to the dessert table and called everyone over. She started the singing, and the whole yard joined in. "Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Sutton. Happy birthday to you." Sutton blew out the candles. Everyone cheered, and then I stepped forward. "Hey, everyone, can I have a minute?" I said it loud enough to carry across the yard, but calm enough that it didn't sound like a scene. People turned. Mom smiled at me, probably expecting a toast. Dad nodded like, "Go ahead." I pulled out my phone and connected it to the Bluetooth speaker I'd set up earlier. I put together a little slideshow for the occasion, I said. Just some family photos and memories. I thought it'd be nice. Mom actually clasped her hands together. "Oh, Michael, how thoughtful." The first few slides were normal. Baby pictures of Sutton, family vacations, school photos. People laughed and pointed and said, "Ah." It was exactly what they expected. And then the slides changed. The next photo was Sutton's scrapbook. 3 volumes, thick with pages and photos and stickers. Then my scrapbook. 1 volume, the last 12 pages blank. I didn't say anything. I just let it sit. Then came the birthday cake photo, the one from October. Me standing behind a cake that said, "Happy birthday, Sutton," on my 32nd birthday. Mom's Facebook caption underneath, celebrating our Michael's birthday with the whole family. So blessed. I watched the faces in the yard. Some people squinted. Some leaned closer. A few looked confused. Waverly's mouth opened slightly. Then came the text messages. Mom's text after I left. "You left without saying goodbye Saturday. That was rude." Aunt Jolene noticed. Mom's text asking me to plan this party. Sutton deserves something really special this year. The side-by-side of Christmas gift counts. The list of school events. Just the truth, one slide at a time. The yard was silent. You could hear the caterer shifting trays inside the house. When the slideshow ended, I turned off the speaker and looked at my family. Mom's face had gone white. Dad's jaw was clenched. Sutton was staring at the ground. Sloane had her hand on his arm. Aunt Jolene was holding her wine glass like she'd forgotten it existed. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't shake. I just spoke. I want to be clear about something. I didn't do this to ruin Sutton's birthday. Happy birthday, Sutton, sincerely. I did this because every single person in this yard just saw something that's been happening my entire life. And for the first time, you can't pretend it didn't. I looked at my mom. Mom, you served me a cake with Sutton's name on it on my birthday. You posted the photo to Facebook. When I left, you didn't ask if I was okay. You told me I was rude. Then, 2 months later, you asked me to plan the party you're standing at right now, for the brother whose name was on my cake. Mom opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Her eyes were wet and her hands were shaking. Part of me wanted to stop, but I've been doing that my entire life. That's how I ended up here. I looked at my dad. Dad, you told me not to be dramatic. On my birthday, while I stood in front of a cake with someone else's name on it. Look around this yard at all the effort that went into this party and ask yourself, has anything like this ever been done for me? Dad didn't say anything. He looked down at his shoes. For a man who always had an opinion, his silence said everything. Sutton stepped forward. Michael, I didn't know. About the scrapbooks, the gifts, the events. I didn't know it was that bad. I know you didn't, I said. And that's not your fault. But it is real. And I'm tired of pretending it isn't. The yard stayed silent. I wasn't performing. I wasn't seeking approval. I was just telling the truth. I'm not asking for an apology, I said. I'm telling you where things stand. I've built a life I'm proud of. I have a job I'm good at, a home I bought myself, people who treat me like I matter. And I did all of that without a single one of you asking how I was doing. So I'm going to go home. And if any of you want a relationship with me going forward, you're going to have to earn it. Not with words, with effort. Because I'm done being the one who shows up and gets nothing in return. I walked across the yard, picked up my jacket from the back of a chair, and headed for the gate. Behind me, I heard Mom start to cry. I heard Aunt Jolene say something to Waverly. I heard Dad say my name. Just once, quietly, in a voice I'd never heard him use before. I didn't turn around. The drive home was different this time. No silence. No emptiness. I called Tessa on speaker and told her it was done, and she said, "How do you feel?" And I said, "Like myself." Emmett got the full debrief that night over pizza. His reaction was a slow nod followed by, "Michael, you just became the main character of your own life." Then he ate 3 more slices and asked if I wanted to play basketball Tuesday. That's why I love Emmett. In the weeks that followed, things shifted. Sutton texted me a week later. Not the usual one-liner, but a long message. He said he'd gone back through old photos and seen what I was talking about. He said he felt sick about it. He said he didn't want to lose me. We've been talking. It's slow, and it's careful, and it's honest. That's all I can ask for. Mom sent a letter, handwritten, for pages. She apologized for the cake, for the Facebook post, for not seeing it sooner. She said she'd started seeing a therapist. I don't know if it's enough yet, but it's the first time she's ever acknowledged it, in writing, without making excuses. That matters. Dad hasn't reached out. I'm not surprised. But Sutton told me Dad has been quiet lately, different. That he asked Sutton one night, "Do you think Michael's right about us?" The fact that he asked means the thought is in there. Whether he does anything with it is up to him. As for me, I'm doing more than fine. I'm doing great. I've got my house in Crozet with the oak tree and the porch swing. I've got Rooney, who is still the man of the house. I've got Tessa, who makes me laugh and makes me feel seen. I've got Emmett, who texts me terrible memes at midnight and reminds me that friendship isn't about history, it's about showing up. And every morning, when I pour my coffee and step out onto that porch, I think about that kid who ate a slice of someone else's birthday cake in silence and drove home alone. I think about how long he waited for his family to notice him. And I think about the moment he finally stopped waiting and started living. That kid would be proud of where I am. And for the first time in my life, so am I.